David Molak, who we followed his story in The Upstanders, which is the third film, and he was cyber bullied to death, basically. And he was popular, not the most popular kid. He was good looking. He was good in sports. He was the youngest of three boys, and went to school, and it started off as a joke. And then kids piled on, and that sort of herd mentality, I'll say that again, the herd mentality, started to escalate. And then it became, and I think he felt like, it's just words. I can handle this, right? Like it'll get, we always know things are going to pass, right? But this kept escalating, where it was suddenly like people were like creating the different persona on social media and on text messages. And so it started to follow him everywhere. And by the time he ended up telling his parents, he had been so like chipped away at just constantly, when you're just having 1,000 darts thrown at you every day. And then you start to realize who's doing it. Like you can't trust who it is. And it started to take a real toll on him. And by the time Matt and Maureen, his parents, got involved, there'd been so much damage done. And a lot of his friends who we interviewed in the film, now they're like, I wish I'd done something. I wish I'd said something. I wish I knew what to say and what to do. I wish I knew how to step up. And because they just sort of thought it was a joke. I don't think anybody realized. And this is just one thing, right? Like this goes on all the time. At least in the old days when it happened at school, you went home and it wasn't there. Now it's just 24/7. And the statistics are that only 1 in 5 kids will go to a trusted adult because they think they should be able to handle it. And also 9 times out of 10, an adult can make it worse. They're like, oh, I'm going to go in and fix this, or I'm going to go after the kid who did this or started, or I'm going to make sure the school knows to step in, and then what are the school's rights? And so when David passed by suicide, his parents channeled a lot of that grief and energy into passing one of the most comprehensive bills and laws on bullying called David's Law in Texas. And and they did it in an off session year or something. And so Maureen, who I've become dear friends with, she is now lobbying in DC as well, and very committed to COSA, which is Kids Online Safety Act, to help to hold platforms accountable to really looking at the algorithm and looking at not just like bullying, but fentanyl laced gummies and predatory, behavior, and just like the sex trafficking. I mean, it's just, there's so much there, but we don't want our kids to feel like they have to be terrified online, right? We need parents and families to be informed. We can't leave them hanging out on their own, trying to fend for themselves. So we need to come together. And that's what I love about like and the Upstanders in particular have now sort of become a dual program, in the sense that we teach online digital citizenship, online safety and harm. We have the Like 101 course and the Upstanders 101 course, which are, they're just, I feel like they're kind of progressive, and they use story as well to share information.
I'd love, Sheila, for you to share how young people and their parents can connect with all of this content. And we should say that this content has been reviewed scientifically. It's not like you just came up with these cool stories.
Right.
They're actually being reviewed by the experts.
Yes.
So how do we access this? And I was really struck by something that you told me when we spoke maybe 3-4 weeks ago. And that is, you said, my mission in life is that everybody matters and everybody belongs. And I believe mental health education should be free, period.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that. And I think that you're on an amazing mission. So how do we connect with all of this amazing content?
So impactful.co, we did not forget the M, it's just impactful.co, is the, that's where we basically license to schools and corporations around the world. What's interesting is we are also very popular in corporations, which I did not like. I'm not some visionary that put it on a roadmap and said, oh, and let's go into corporations. It was parents who sat in those auditoriums at school and saw these programs and said, this needs to be at our work. And even though they're mostly kids talking, parents, brain scientists, mental health experts, educators, DEI, HR people as well. Yes, they're all in these films. But, and we didn't even know, right? Like Microsoft, I will say, just because they're in our own backyard, was the first to reach out to say, we've had some parents mention this. We'd like to bring it in and start showing it. And they'd always supported some of our other films around women empowerment and screenagers and finding kind. So we did a screening. It was so it was game changing that they then ended up starting to license it for multiple years, and that's what actually started us licensing into corporations where suddenly we're at Goldman and Starbucks and Liberty Mutual and like KPMG. Like suddenly we're in these big corporations, and it has become a multi-year licensed program for employees and their families. So that was the cool thing, is we organically found a way to reach the parents, because when you're in the schools, maybe you reach 25% of the parent body because they're all so busy. You can reach all the kids. 1 week of wellness, you show it in every classroom. You've just reached the student body and the educators. But to reach the parents, which is so key, so the two together is really amazing. So impactful.co, and I will say that and we've been doing this for several years now, and we continue to add to the programming, and there's fun brain hacks and activities that are evidence-based. And it's interesting because the country is very divided. I mean, education is being politicized. Mental health is being politicized. You have half the country that's like, don't turn our kids into wimps, right? Like can't be all touchy-feely SEL. And then you got the other half that are like, oh, this is the most important thing, like nothing else matters if you can't do. So how do we please the whole country and all the English-speaking parts of the world? And so we work closely and follow legislation, which gives us the words or the context or the lens to present this content. Because at the end of the day, we need to be able to hear each other and see each other and learn from each other from a place of love and curiosity, not fear and judgment. And how do we do that when our jobs are on the line, our promotions are on the line, our grades are on the line, our scholarships are on the line? How do you look at a person who's unhoused or homeless on the street and feel like, I don't know how to help them. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the knowledge. I can't take them into my house. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to step over them and go on. We can't keep doing that. We need information. We need to know, like, what do we do? I think there's this thought I used to think, remember, I didn't want to make angst. I kept saying no to Tina because who am I? What I have learned now is that it is on all of us to do a little bit. And it is not going to take too much time, money, or energy from us. Just like when you want to cry really hard, you think if you let it out, you're just going to cry a river and you're never going to be the ugly cry, like you won't stop. You only cry on average for 7 seconds. But when I learned that, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to let it out because it's not going to last forever. And I know I'm all over the place. I'm so sorry. I wanted to add that beyond impactful.co, I did sort of hit this point in June. I had sold my company to a public company, and soon after there were changes made, so it wasn't strategically a good fit. And I ended up having the opportunity to buy it back. And so, which was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
This is IndieFlix.
This was IndieFlix. So I created Impactful Group to buy IndieFlix from the former public company that owned us, from the public company that formerly owned us, and pulled it out. And in that same time in June, I got a call from multiple people saying, did you hear about that suicide at this school? Did you hear about the kid who died? And I kept hearing, I was like, God, and I hear it all the time. So we are kind of conditioned because they'll say, is your program good? We just had a suicide. Ideally, we're more like on the prevention side, but we can come in with a little triage. So I ended up hearing about these 5 suicides and then a counselor dying by suicide. And I thought, what's going on here? Like, there's more support out there than ever. There are benefits. People are talking about it more. Why is there even more kids dying? What's going on? And so I thought, I know our program is a premium program. It's always been sort of for the schools that had funding or a really active parent board. And I just thought we need to like lift the bumpers. We need to like make it available more. So I decided, kind of crazy and super backwards, but I decided that yes, every classroom in the country needs to have free access to mental health education, quality curated mental health education. You can find a ton of stuff on TikTok and Instagram, but it's not vetted. You don't know if it's good for you. There's so much on there that looks like it's really good and it's really not healthy for you, right? So I decided to launch a pilot program. And so in Alaska, Washington State, and Illinois and California, we have made it free to every K through 12 school, community college, and higher ed. And in the process, I'm identifying partners and I'm learning and collecting data because we also have an impact report we've built in. My goal is to figure out how to make it free across the country.